Because now you're coming to the conversation with preconceived notions, preconceived ideas. You mentioned earlier bringing the past experiences in. We do that all the time.
We're set up to do that in
Right.
a sense, and so how do you...
So my wife and I, we had this conversation the other day. I said, listen, we went to a service on last Friday, and one of the things the minister said was, the truth of the past is the truth of the past. Leave it there.
I like that.
Right.
That's some advice.
So now we have to say, let's wipe the slate clean. The challenge is we still have memory. And so when something happens that looks like the past, the memory's going to kick in. And now we have to do, the Bible tells us to cast down every thought, every imagination that exalts itself against our knowledge of God. We control how we think about what comes to our mind. We can't control what comes to the mind. Actually, some of it we can. Because there's some thinking that says that what we think or what we dream about is the overflow of what we've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at something and then all of a sudden you start thinking along those lines. Advertisers know this all day
Yeah,
long.
it's marketing.
Right, so they know this. So we have to be mindful of what we're taking in throughout the day. I can't listen to TMZ
Great
all day
advice.
long. I can't watch World Star Hip Hop all day long and then have compassion for people.
It's interesting you bring that up because there's this saying, it's you become who you're around the most.
Right.
People socially have constructed an agreement with that.
Right.
At the same time, they may have not have inferred that what you just said may be really obvious until you've said it.
Right.
It's like, well, that makes sense now. However, it's not socially a conversation.
Right.
Like the other saying where you become who you hang out with most. Got it. All right. Well, the question is why? Because what you're putting in your mind can have an impact on the story that you tell.
It becomes your reality.
It becomes your reality.
Right. You're around these folks all the time. They're thinking and saying things all. Take for example, the classroom today. I went to a school for a career day.
Nice. Okay. Was that recently or?
Recently,
I just did one last
month.
week. I like it.
Last
Patterson,
month.
New Jersey. I was there.
Oh, my
last
goodness.
Last week.
I went to a middle school and I went to an a high school.
Okay.
The setups were different, but the middle school, the classroom is buck wild. Kids all over the place. Language, cussing like sailors.
Wow.
Now, when we talk about you become what you're around, what do they hear on television? What do they hear in their music? Children are raising children. What do they hear their parents saying? So if we learn the English language just by listening and picking up what we're hearing in our environment, if this is what they're hearing in their environment, then
no duh.
It's what I'm going to say. It's what I'm going to repeat. It's what I'm going to reiterate. And I don't see it as wrong. How can this be wrong? This is how my parents talk. This is how the music talks. This is how the television talks. This is what everybody's doing. So how can this be wrong? And that's the impact of the people around you influencing what you do. Psychology will tell us that the lesser personality will automatically take on the identity or the characteristics of the more dominant personality.
Yeah, it's influence or influencing.
Right. We see it with parents and children. Every young boy wants to be like his dad. Every young girl wants to be like
Even
her
if
mom.
they cognitively resent them.
Right.
They'll model their behavior.
Right.
Even if, and they might spend their whole life attempting to.
And there's two reasons for that typically. One is it's just intuitive. The other is if I'm like them, maybe they'll like me.
Yeah, there's that dichotomy.
Right. So it's a lot that goes into.
So it's interesting you brought that up about what you become what you perceive, and you're going to perceive what you're around.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent the last 5 years listening to 3.5 to 4.5 hours of audiobooks every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll meet people, and I was very romantic about reading physical books. I've been my whole life. My mother had a library, modeling, right? I always dreamt of that. But about 5.5 years ago, I had a mentor that was like, you can still do that. And they just were on my case. When you're driving your car, can you read the book?
Right.
No.
Right.
So try this. And it's helped a lot.